We've had, that QR code linking to Slido. Here's what I cannot promise tonight. What I can't promise is that we're going to get to every single question that was asked because you guys rock. You guys submitted 50 questions, which is awesome. I also can't promise that any questions that get asked tonight will get asked or will get answered. But what I can promise is that tomorrow, Laura and I are going to do our best to go through some of the ones that don't get answered tonight, and we'll do a little video answering as many of those as we can tomorrow. So if your question that you asked that you were very, very, very excited and hopeful that we would answer does not get answered, we will try to get to that tomorrow so that when this video hits YouTube, you will have all of these, but also the ones we did not get to. So let me introduce to you my friends Josh and Tracy Wassenaar.
Hello.
If you were at Southwest Christian, you got to hear from Josh and Tracy this morning during Encounter. Josh has been a longtime friend. He and I grew up here together at Grace Church. We played baseball together. We were in small group together. And I was supposed to be in their wedding, and then I got COVID.
That was so sad.
I know. Every time I see the socks and the tie from your wedding, I'm like, I never got to wear these. But they are amazing, and they've been in ministry together, part of Salt Company, if you guys are familiar with Salt. They're now at the Salt Company Church at Purdue's campus in West Lafayette, Indiana. Here's actually where I would love to start, because I think one of the questions, actually our most upvoted question, I think tees off a perfect introduction for the two of you. So this first question that came in that got upvoted a ton of times is, how do I respectfully talk to a girl without hyperventilating, getting nervous, or being awkward? It's a great question.
It's a good question.
The people want to know. The people want to know. So why don't we do this? Can you guys share a little bit about your story, meeting, dating,
of course,
getting married, all of that, and how, Josh, you did not hyperventilate.
No, but I did, guys.
Oh, so come on.
This is great.
It's the opposite. Yeah, I'll say this. Being cool under pressure, it's a trade secret. Can't tell you guys about that. Sorry. But no. So here's what happened. Tracy and I were on staff together, and we're on staff at a church. And so here's what you can't do. You can't go around and date everybody at church. It's weird. And if you're on staff, you can't be the guy that's oh, she's playing hard to get, so I'll really go after her. That's just super awkward, right? So you can't do that. So we're on staff together. I like Tracy. I think, man, she's pretty cool. I want to ask her on a date.
I liked him also.
And so I go up to her to talk to her like a normal human being. And Tracy, in the midst of those conversations, would get up and leave and abandon them.
So nervous. Don't do that if you're a girl in here.
Yeah. So principle number one, just talk to the person that you're interested in like a normal human being. It's okay if you're nervous. The nervous thing's actually fine. Like, get a little butterflies in the stomach, that's great. That probably means you're actually interested. If there's no nervousness, that's probably not the person for you. Move on. Anyways, but here's the thing. I took her at face value, and I was like, she's not interested. And so I moved on. I was like, oh, bummer. Like, I'll take the L. She's not interested, so I'll move on.
Pause. That's a lesson there. Don't, give up if you feel like there's a rejection. There's other people out there.
Oh, yeah, in life.
Yes,
yeah.
in life.
Life went on for me. Life went on, and it was fine. You know what? Like if Tracy was not, my life
I want to hear
on.
Josh and Tracy talk.
Right. My life was not dependent on her approval. And so it was okay that she wasn't interested. And so I went on with life, and I almost asked out somebody else. But because of a good friend who was like, you should really think about asking out Tracy, I revisited the thought, and I re-engaged the conversation, and eventually I was like, I think Tracy might be interested, so I asked her out. And I was like, hey, Tracy, I think you're really awesome, and I want to get to know you more, and I would love to take you on a date. That's how it goes. You are direct, and you're clear. So guys in the room, Here's what you don't do. You don't sit back and hope that one day you end up magically at a date because you were like, oh, let's like hang out at some point, and then like somebody bails. You don't do that.
But for the girls in the room, make sure you're also clear. If you actually don't like them, don't go on the date just because you're like, I want to experience a date.
Principle for dating. Clarity is kindness.
Love that.
Being incredibly direct. You men, be direct. Ask people out with genuine care. And if they say no, it's okay. Life isn't over. Women, if you're interested and you want to give it a try, say yes. If you're not, say no. It is that simple. It is more kind for you to be direct and honest than to pretend and let something play out and see how it goes. Yep.
Amazing. Okay, so this isn't a question, but just to get to know you guys a little bit better, what did dating look like for the two of you? And then how did you know that you wanted to get married? And then like, how did you go about asking Tracy to marry you?
Yeah, I think one of the unique things and gifts that we got to have is that we were friends before we actually dated. So we actually got to see each other interact with, do ministry, do life with other people. And it wasn't just us interacting, but other people's input was into our like relationship from the very beginning. And so having that was super helpful to discern if where we're headed in our relationship is actually the right direction. And we weren't afraid for people to give us feedback or even people to know like sin in our life. So that we can actually evaluate correctly. So we had community brought in really early.
Yeah, I think community input into real dating is potentially the most important thing for you, and especially at the stage of your life. What do your parents think? Do they like this person? They believe it or not, your parents want the best for you. They want you to have an awesome spouse one day, and they will protect you from a terrible train wreck of a life. So if they're saying, hey, this is a bad idea, it's because they love you. So listen to your parents. The second thing about our dating relationship is 90% of our dating relationship was friendship.
Yeah.
It's like, I just want to actually spend time with Tracy. A good test for this is, do I want to go to Target with this person with no particular purpose? Would I want to walk through Target and like look at random things and then not buy stuff and leave and say, that was a good hour spent? Because I always felt that with Tracy. I was like, I just want to be with you. I want to go on a walk with you. I want to hang out with you. Okay, that's a great test. Do you want to just spend your time with them? And then the additional things that dating brings is clarity. You're saying, I'm actually investigating and looking towards marriage with you and you alone. And with the time, it grows intimacy, and then you actually get to have forward-looking conversations towards the future. So we didn't have super future-oriented conversations until about 6 months in. Yeah. And then when we did have those 6-month-in conversations, things changed pretty quickly. But our time in life, notably, I was 24, she was 26. So a little bit older than you guys were. Out of college, we had already seen and done a couple things.
I had never dated anyone. So if you're in here, you're like, I got to hurry up and date someone. There's no rush, like literally.
Yeah. Yeah, there's time. You're not on somebody, you're not behind schedule, You're doing just fine. But dating is friendship with eyes towards the future. Is this the person I want to marry? And ultimately, if that is not like on the table, then it's kindness to stop it before it goes further than it needs to. Okay, so that's what we did.
That's so good. And so here's why I bring Josh and Tracy into a Q&A like this is because they have modeled for their church community, for me as their friend, like what it looks like to date healthily, biblically, and are now married and are a perfect, not perfect, a really awesome picture of what it looks like to have a Christ-centered marriage. And so you have small group leaders in this room who are also that. And so my encouragement as we, wrap up the Q&A later tonight and you move into small groups, keep these conversations going in your small group and ask your small group leaders to weigh in on these things as well because they've got tons of wisdom to share with you. Like I said last week, half of the leaders in this room are married, the other half are single. Like what an amazing cross-section of young adults to pour into you guys. So let's get into some of these questions. I think this one's actually a really great segue off of your guys' story, but how do you know if who you are with is God's choice or like the right choice for you?
Yeah, I feel like that idea of hearing the way that wording of the question is almost like a soulmate idea. There's no such thing as a soulmate. But there is a way to make a great decision towards the person that you want to marry. And I think a part of that, some of the things that we've already started to say, is ultimately like prayer, being in prayer, going to scripture, having community around you. And then what are the things that when you think about the person that you want to marry, who are they like? Do they love Jesus? Do they value Christ first and foremost? Do they love him more than anything else? And then secondly, what are they like around other people? Are they actually kind? Are they fun? Do you have fun with them? Like, do you want to be around them? Or just some of the few things that I kind of think about.
Yeah, I think some of that question comes from the place of, what if I screw up God's plan for my life? And I just, like, clearly, if you are a Christian and you are asking God in prayer and you're asking community who loves you and loves Jesus for wisdom as you take steps towards anyone in relationships, and they are giving green lights and inviting you into something great, that is good. Like you actually can't derail God's plan for your life. You're not that powerful. Romans 8 says that he is orchestrating all things for the good of those who love him. All things. It might be painful. There might be suffering. There will be pain and suffering in marriage. You're going to sin. They're going to sin. You're going to have to endure with one another and learn how to love one another. But you cannot screw up God's plan for your life. He is better than that. He's over that. And so to this person and to the one who's worrying, God is kind. And if you trust him and you trust the people he's placed around you, he will lead you towards what is good.
Yeah, and I think a thing to think about is this the type of person that I can suffer with? Because the reality is life is hard. You're going to suffer, and you want the person around you that's not just hot and you can like laugh with, but someone that will actually carry the burdens alongside you.
Yeah, that's so good. So then in the context of a relationship, how do you love someone without, this question asks, without dealing with lust? So like, think about in your dating relationship, what did that look like for you guys to battle against lust, fight for purity as you guys are dating? Like how do you love someone without dealing with lust?
Okay, let me define a term quick. Lust is oftentimes used in context of like sexual lust, and that is one way to apply it, but it's actually a broader concept in the Bible. A lust for money is greed. A lust for power is avarice. Okay, so that's a big word, whatever. Ignore that. The point of this is like lust is when you are wanting something that is good in life, but wanting it more than what's yours and trying to take it when God has not given it. Okay? Think about food. Can you enjoy a great meal and delight in it and be like, that is amazing? And you've also had the moment where you eat the entire Casey's Hot and Ready pizza and you feel like a trash bag the next day because you've gorged yourself on actual garbage. Okay. See the difference? I'm hungry, I eat food, it's good. I just want to like pound disgusting crap and it's bad for me. Okay. So food in the sense is like relationships. Here's the idea of love in relationships. I want to enjoy someone and bless them more than they're blessing me. I want to give to them. I want to reflect God's sacrificial kindness towards me, towards them. And so the question I think fundamentally is, when you're thinking of this person, are you wanting good things for them, or are you trying to take something that is not yours yet? Am I trying to give, or am I trying to take? That's good. Your sexual desires are not for you. They're for them. Fundamentally, my desires are for my wife. They're not for me. They're not to please myself. They're actually to bless her. And so if you're unwilling to recognize that God's design is in place somewhere where sex is in between a man and woman in marriage, and you're saying, I want to do it outside of that, you're all of a sudden not loving. You're trying to take what is not yours. You're grabbing from outside the boundaries, and you're actually going to bring harm onto yourself and onto them. So, paradigm. I want to give more than I take.
Yeah, and I think the reality is we should be the type of people who are confessing. And so don't be afraid. Actually, you have great small group leaders, so you should be confessing and bringing that to the light. And I think that reality will help you see that you're not the only one that might be struggling with that, and how to actually like move forward in that and love the person that I actually take away from the person.
Yeah, there's actually a couple of questions in there just on like, how do you respond when you screw up? How do you recover from having sex with somebody before marriage? How do you respond after you sexually fail? And I just want to start off by saying this: there is no one in this room who is sexually perfect. Nobody on the stage. I've failed. My wife has failed. Danny's failed. And God's grace abounds and conquers our failure. His mercy is more. And so there is no one here who has disqualified them from the love of God. He loves you. And there is nobody who has sinned so consistently that they've disqualified themselves somehow later from the love of God. Like your sin can't be too big for God. It also can't be too persistent for him. His mercy is new every morning. He has more love than you have sin. And so when we have this conversation, this is not about like dropping the hammer. It is about inviting you into the good life with Jesus. The place to start when you fail is by turning to your God and remembering that he loves you and confessing your sin. Turning to your friends, go to your small group, and just be honest. Like, man, I screwed up this week. Here's what happened. And allow that to be the starting place. They love you enough to speak to you with kindness and to point you towards truth. They will. And so there's a million contingencies. There's a million things like, what about this specific situation? I don't know. They might, though, because they're walking with you. So invite them in. Like, you need people around you to shoulder the burden and to take you the next step.
So good. So maybe practically speaking, what would you guys suggest for boundaries during, a high school dating relationship? The person asking this question says, like, they're trying to stay pure, but they also want to hang out with the person that they like. So what sort of boundaries might be wise to put in place for a, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old in this room?
Man, I think, again, one of the things that Josh kind of highlighted is one of the biggest aims should be seeking friendship. And so you guys are in a prime state where you have so much opportunity and time on your hand, whether you believe that or not, where you can do life with one another and bringing that person that you're dating in on that. And I'm not saying that you always need to make sure you're with community, but there's a way to do the boundary portion where you're out, in public doing things, where you're not actually just trying to stir lust by individually being by yourself in the dark laying down. Now, that's a bad idea, obviously.
Yeah, a couple of concrete things, I think, especially in high school, would be 90% of your time should be with other people. So like you should, or in semi-public spaces. So like you can be at your parents' house, but just like be in the living room, and like your mom or your dad, they could theoretically walk through. And so be in a public space or hang out with your buddies and like have like a group hangout. That's a great way to like actually just enjoy friendship together. I would say a couple of things like, it's like, I will go no further than this. Don't go into each other's bedrooms. Just, there's no reason. Tracy and I, okay, here are things that we did, by the way. I did not go into her bedroom. She did not go into mine. We never did that. When we hung out past a certain time at night, I think it was like 11 o'clock, it was like, if we're not with friends, we stop. So it's like, what's the idea? Nothing good happens one-on-one after 11 o'clock. Nothing good. So don't do it. Like, maybe the time is different for you. Maybe the time is 10 o'clock. I don't know. But like, have a time and say, if we're hanging out with buddies and everyone's over or whatever, and yeah, we can stay up until 2 a.m. Who cares? But alone, we're not doing that. Another boundary that was really helpful for us is like, obviously, we're not going to touch each other in bikini areas or in bathing suits. Like, that's just so obvious, but like clear, I'm going to say it. We don't lay down on couches together. Or anywhere. It's like we're not going to do the things that make us long for marriage yet. So in contextually, I would say in high school, kissing is almost never necessary. Like I don't think there's a good reason for it. Maybe you would disagree and you can shut her down right now. It probably isn't worth it. Like, I don't think it's needed. It might be stirring up something that's just too far out in marriage it's not ready yet.
And sometimes I think when you start to do the intimate portion of like relationships, you are starting to push towards something that will blind you towards actually considering if this is someone that you want to continue to date. Because then you're like, I just like want to keep making out with this person. Therefore, even if I don't like them and they're not fun and they're annoying, then I'm just going to keep dating them. That's a terrible idea to keep dating someone just because you want to make out with them.
Yeah. And I'll add this. If you're wondering, how do I make a new boundary? We just screwed up. I don't know what to do. You take where you failed, you go to someone that you love and you trust, who's smarter and wiser than you, and you say, hey, here's what happened. How can we prevent this? Like, how can we walk in holiness together? I don't know how to do it. and then let them set the boundary for you. Do you trust someone enough to allow them to speak into your life with hyper clarity? Because they love you. They want the best thing for you. They want your relationship to flourish. They hope that you become an awesome man or woman of God. Like that's what they want for you. And so why not allow somebody who knows a little bit more, lived a little bit more life, come alongside and be a good older brother or older sister to you? That's what I would say for boundaries. Bring someone else in with.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's good. So the next question is, can I kiss a girl if I'm not dating her?
No.
That's not wise. Yeah, I don't know what else to add.
I think easy. One of the passages that I actually thought spoke into this. The boys are like, yeah. So Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, like, you say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. So it's like, the question, can you, is probably not the right question. It's should you? Is it wise? And I think I would say, Josh and Tracy were just pretty clear. The answer is no. It is not wise for you to kiss someone that you are not dating.
Yeah, that's an important thing. Some of the things that we're saying right now are like older brother, older sister, best practices. Like we made some mistakes. We also saw our friends make worse mistakes than us because by God's grace, we were like protected from some things. Yeah, like some of the boundary stuff on dating, it's not in the Bible because the Bible doesn't talk about dating. But what it does talk about is marriage, and it talks about friendship, and we're saying those are really the two models that we have in Scripture. And so, like, let's live in the midst of what's real. If you're not married, you're friends. So if you wouldn't be comfortable sitting with Jesus or sitting with Paul or sitting with your dad or your mom and, like, being honest, like, yeah, this is exactly what we do, then it's like, oh, you're probably doing, like, something that you shouldn't. And bringing people in and walking in holiness is actually a great next step. So, yeah.
You've sort of alluded to this question because this was one that you and I were talking about beforehand, but somebody asked, if you have sex with someone and you both realize it was a mistake, can you stay with that person and come back to God? Can you kind of like hit reset on that relationship while you're still together, knowing that like, yeah, that was too far. We crossed that line in a pretty big way, but we still really do like each other, love each other, and we want to stay together. Like, how do we navigate that situation with wisdom?
So there, again, is nothing that cannot be redeemed by the mercy of Jesus. He is in the business of making dead things alive again. And so a relationship that seems dead can be made alive. That being said, in this specific context, in particular for high schoolers, that is going to be the edge case. That's unlikely for that to actually come back and be a flourishing relationship. It'll most likely be wise for you guys to stop dating. Now, again, I think this is something where you need to bring somebody in with you that is older and wiser and loves you deeply and like trust them. I think the general question to you would be, if somebody comes alongside you and says, hey, I think it's actually way better for you to break up right now, would you trust them? And if you're unwilling to obey, if you're unwilling to agree with their wisdom, then I think that that's something that you need to investigate in your soul. What is it about it that I won't listen? And like wrestle with that before God, you know? Like, so I don't have a specific example for your or a specific response for your specific moment, but I do have, go and talk to somebody who knows you. Let them have the final word because they actually care about you.
Yeah, and I just want to reemphasize Romans 8. Therefore, there's no condemnation for those of us in Christ Jesus. No one is too far gone that Christ hasn't already paid the price for them. And so if you're in Christ, shame doesn't dictate who you are, Jesus does. And so that's the reality and an invitation to keep coming back to him.
So good. Tracy, this is one I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on in particular, just because it was asked by one of our female students here. But she asked, how do I stop craving male validation? And how do I really feel God's validation? And so if you're in a situation where you're probably not dating someone, but wish that you were, like how do you navigate that type of situation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think it's just unique to women or girls. It's definitely something that everyone wrestles with wanting to be seen and valued in the person that's chosen. But I think one of the firm foundations to start on is looking to the character of God. When you look to the character of God and who he is and who he says then who you are, that impacts then the value that you're giving towards what other people think of you. That's a hard thing to do. So it's first being able to look to the character of who God is, and then looking to the character of God impacts the way that we should see ourselves. And so you need to be honest with yourself and then with God of, gosh, this is who I feel I am. This is who I actually think that I value the level of what other people are saying about me more than I value what you say about me. You have to be honest first for the foundation of that to move towards understanding the worth that you have in the Lord. Because when you understand the worth that you have in the Lord, you actually can then enter into relationships, friendships, going around people that you like and you want to like you in a way in which you're not trying to receive something from them, but the overflow of knowing the love that Christ has for you is poured out in the way that you interact with him. It's not like I need to take, but I actually can give, and that actually frees you up into spaces. And so one of the big things I would say is being honest with the Lord, being honest with yourself, going and looking to God's character, and then bringing people in on that. Be honest with your community and say, hey, right now I'm wanting to seek the validation of people around me more than I want to seek the Lord. And that can be a lifelong process, and that's okay. Like, God is kind, and he is patient, and he's willing to do that with you, and you're not a burden for them.
That's so good. Thanks. I'm going to skip down a couple just because I'm liking the flow of our conversation so far. Can you start dating somebody if you don't know at the beginning of the relationship that you're going to marry that person?
Yes. 100% yes. Dating, if it's actually just friendship, then it's okay if you break up. Like, it's a bummer. That's not what you wanted. But it's actually okay. It's not the end of the world. It's far too much stress to start dating with some vision of clarity that you're going to marry that person. Because if you break up, then it feels like a divorce. But that's not what it is. You haven't made vows before God and family and friends. So you're not married yet. So don't pretend it's something that it isn't. Let it be a dating relationship.
Yeah, and it's so weird to go on a date and be like, okay, I guess this is it. I better have my ring picked out. The dress is already ready to go. That's weird. Just go, have fun, get to know the person, and evaluate from there.
Yeah. No, that's so good. I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago in a message, like, a lot of high school relationships end up looking like mini marriages because of crossing boundaries, the amount of time you're spending together. And so then, like you just said, the breakup then feels like even more significant than a breakup, feels like a divorce. That's not healthy. That's not healthy. At what point in a relationship should you talk about past mistakes and trauma and past relationships? Is that something that should be maybe saved for when you're close to marriage, or is that something the other person should know, like on the front end, like as you begin to date or even before you date?
Yeah. Again, we're talking about like wise practices, and so, but when I think about even our relationship, so I didn't grow up in a Christian home at all. I became a believer my freshman year of high school, so shout out to all you guys. Yep, yeah. And I have a lot of trauma and just come from a really broken home. And so that was one of the fears that I had entering a relationship with Josh. And for me, what I would say, the wisest thing to do is that you should be processing that trauma, that heartache, that brokenness that you have from your life with a community of girls, older, younger, whatever your community group, small group looks like, before you actually just jump in and do that with the person that you're dating. And so for us, that didn't happen until engagement felt the wisest for us to enter into, because what that also does is it builds up and stirs up even more intimacy of this person now knows the depths of all these things that happen, and therefore if we break up, oh my gosh, what's going to happen here? But actually, when we were moving towards engagement, having that space that was almost just a little bit more safe to share that with him, but also already had processed that with older people in my community.
Yeah, that's a great point. We talked a lot about physical boundaries. There are emotional and spiritual boundaries that are wise for you too. The emotional boundaries of what you share and when you share it, I think in general, the more intimate, the more certain of marriage, the more those boundaries should be like you bring them in more and more, right? It's like any relationship that's growing, you don't trauma dump day one. That's a tough day one. It's like do that with somebody you trust, that you know, that you can actually believe will speak into you and care for you. So yeah, I think having people around you is brilliant.
Kind of staying in the flow. This one actually just came in, but I think it's actually relevant. Is it bad to have like a guy best friend or have a girl best friend while you're single?
I mean, my best friends were dudes, but I did have a friend who's a girl who's like a really, really good friend, like a best friend. Mm-hmm. What functionally happened when I started dating Tracy is our relationship, me and like my girl best friend, changed. It's like Tracy is now my girl best friend, and I want to spend way more time with her, and that was normal. Now, by God's grace, this girl is like actually one of our best friends in marriage, and like it's awesome. It's just like a good friend. I would say it's contextual and it depends. If friendship is actually just friendship, that's okay. Like it's great. If it is something more, if it feels like there's tension or there's like longing for anything more than just like buds, then yeah, that should probably be stopped. And it likely should look different when you start dating somebody.
Yeah, my guy best friends before we started dating, our friendship looked different than what I would say my girl best friends looked like. The way that I interacted with my girl best friends was totally different, and what I shared with them and how I did life with them was so different than someone that I would consider a guy best friend, if that makes sense. So,
yeah, that's so good. With the time that we have left, I want to shift the conversation a little bit away from dating, and I want to hit on some things like sexuality, just because there were some really good questions here. One of our most upvoted questions was, how do we as Christians respond to the phrase, love is love?
Yeah, this is a great question. Everyone's heard love is love a million times, and it feels like, here's how to describe it. I think love is love is a short, quick statement that when looked on at the surface feels like it's really powerful and deep, but actually when pressed a little bit further, lacks clarity and actually isn't actually saying what you think it's saying. The actual response to like, man, someone says love is love to me in real life, I would say, well, what do you mean by that? Like allow them to like put color behind what they're saying, because it's probably true that they actually don't know what they mean when they say that. And fundamentally, like let me just put a hypothetical situation. Let's say your friend let's say you have a 15-year-old friend who says, you know what, I'm in love. I just started dating a 35-year-old dude, and it's awesome. And then you're like, hey, you should pump the brakes on that. There's something really weird going on. And then they say, well, no, love is love. Okay, what happened? Somebody is trying to use love is love to give themselves permission to do something that is actually going to damage their own life. Okay, love is love is not a bumper sticker that prevents all future pain. It doesn't do that. It actually is just a way to evade real conversations. And so the question is this: is the love that you're talking about God's love, or is it your manufactured desire and lust? Because God's love is designed for your goodness and your flourishing, and it has very specific parameters. God wants to bless you. He wants you to have a flourishing life. He wants you to enjoy life with him and with the people in your world forever. And he designed sex in particular between a man and a woman in marriage for eternity. That's the place for it, for a lifetime. That's the vision. And so if God is inviting us either into that or into a life of singleness and chastity, then here's the fundamental belief for Christians. Jesus is giving us good news. That's actually good for us. And so it's our job to learn why that's good, and then to come to our friends who say, but love is love, and to say, man, I actually have awesome news for you. There is a better way. Jesus is inviting us into something more.
That's good.
And I think I want to add something to that. When it comes to conversations about sexuality and gender and things along those lines, those can be really sensitive conversations. And so the reality is I'm hopeful that when you're entering into that and you hear someone say something like that, what starts to kind of swell up in you is compassion and that you would go in with curiosity of asking questions, not already trying to like clang clans and do all this stuff to make sure that they know that you're correct, but actually getting to a space where you're hearing them, where they feel seen, so that then you can get to a space where they're like, oh, if anything, I know the person that is sitting across from me loves me, and because they love me, they're speaking truth, so that they don't leave the space. Even if the truth is hard, they can leave the space saying that you love me.
Yep, that's so good. This next question, along the same lines, the person asking this question says, how do I recover from my homosexuality when worldly people say it's not possible and that's who I am? So next, I just want you to hear, like, people in our community on a Wednesday night are struggling. It might not be you, but it might be somebody else who sits here every single week, who's in your small group and has never wanted to open up about this. What an amazing opportunity that we have to love one another in this space, right? It means that we don't joke about stuff like this, but we talk about God's purpose and God's design about stuff like this. We talk about how do we encourage and we meet people who maybe at school, like you've got someone who's like out and proud of it. Like, how do you meet that type of person with the love and the compassion as followers of Jesus, right? Because that's also here in our midst too. So I hope that you know that and hear that. And so I love the fact that this person is courageous enough to ask this question. How do I recover when the world says, no, this is who you are? What encouragement and advice would you give for this person?
There's two things here. One, everything Danny said, that is so good. Thank you for having the courage to ask a question like that. I think the question under the question is that there's this weird debate that's going on, like, is homosexuality a choice, or is it actually a part of like our DNA? Is it given to us at birth? And I just want to say, as a Christian, I don't know, and it doesn't matter. That's not important for this conversation right now. We can talk more about that and whether or not sin has corrupted us and that's why we have these desires, or if it's like a choice and we learn to love it. That's not really here nor there. Here's what God's vision is for this. It's not that you would recover from your sexual desires. It's that you would learn to trust God exactly where you are. He loves you. He wants all of you. And do you know what? I am a straight man who has broken sexual desires. I do. I wish every single sexual desire of mine was pure. But I'm a sinful man. And so how do I recover from my sexual desires that are wrong? I come to the Father who pours out grace and mercy. I confess my sins. I confess them to my community. I confess them to people that I know who care about me and who are willing to speak the gospel back to me and to invite me towards holiness. And so for somebody who's wrestling with homosexuality, you are free to come to the throne of grace and to say, here's what I'm wrestling with. And I don't know what it looks like in the future. Maybe one day God will change your desires and you'll be able to marry somebody and live in marriage, and that's beautiful. And maybe the desires you have will never change. But you'll be called to a life of singleness, just like Christ was. One of my best friends actually wrestles with homosexuality, and he will likely be single forever. And it's just like, he's my best friend, and he's a pastor at a church, and he lives for Jesus, and he's given his life for him. I just want you to know, if you live with homosexuality for the rest of your life, that isn't a curse on your life. God is inviting you into incredible obedience and to blessing. My friend has showed me something beautiful, and it's how God has met him in his longings. There's something about marriage where you get to display the shape of the gospel to people, and it's beautiful. I get to show people my love for Tracy, and they get to see Tracy's love for me, and it's like, man, that's how Jesus loves us. But my single friends, they get to display something else. They get to display the sufficiency of the gospel, how Jesus meets every one of their needs, how he meets them exactly where they're at, and he fulfills every longing, and he makes them fully known and fully loved. That is the truth of the gospel. And so there's hope for you. Your desires might not change, but your life in Christ is secure.
Yeah. And I think if the world is telling you this is who you are, so just embrace it, I probably would not listen to that voice, right? Like, that does not seem to be a voice that is of the Lord, because that to me that seems pretty fatalistic, right? Like,
Yeah, I do think there's something in there. Like people, I don't know, the people think about themselves identity-wise is like, this is what I feel, this is who I am. And if you don't affirm every single ounce of me, then how dare you, you're messed up. And in the Bible, we have a different way of understanding who we are. It's not what do I feel like, because sometimes you feel like crap. Sometimes you feel like incredible shame. Sometimes you feel like incredible guilt. But what do? I turn to the Father in heaven who declares who I am. He says that you are a beloved son or daughter of the Father of the universe. And he loves you. That's who you are. And it's from him that we live and we have hope and identity.
Yeah, and I just want to add, the reality is for all of us in here who have said yes to Christ, is that he's after all of us. Like all of who we are, not just our sexuality, not just one portion of our life, but all of who we are, which means that God is calling all of us to lay down our life. So I don't want you to think just because you struggle with sexuality or homosexuality that therefore you are giving up something more. We all are, and you're not alone in that, and you can still walk faithfully with Jesus.
So good. So good. This next question is in the same category, and I think maybe we could offer some practical advice here. It's a really interesting question, and thank you for whoever asked it. The question is, why is it bad to be gay? Because I find men gross, and I don't find them attractive, but women I do. So I'm assuming this is a girl asking this question. How do I overcome that? So, what's tough is, I know for me, Josh, you just said, like, for you, that's not a thing. Tracy, I'm assuming for you, like, I've never had to battle with, like, a homosexual desire. But maybe what encouragement would we give for someone who, like, is sitting here and is like, yeah, I don't find the opposite gender attractive, but I do find my own gender attractive. Like, what do you do in that space? Like, how would we maybe encourage the student?
Yeah, I think the starting place is that it's okay to feel a certain way, to have attractions, but then to say, God, I'm giving this up to you because I'm not going to move towards that person or towards that moment or towards that desire right now. I think there's a lie that we live in that if we don't fulfill every momentary emotional feeling in our life, then we are going to live a depraved life. We won't have what we need. That is just not true. You're actually in control of your body, and you can say no to stuff. Like, there's a parallel question in here somewhere where it's like, how do I actually fight against this stuff? What do I do? How do I fight against lust generally? Okay, hunger for food is a lot like lust, hungering for sex. If you want to teach yourself that you're actually stronger than the desires of your body, start fasting from food. Learn how to say no. Flex that muscle. Learn that actually God has given you by his Spirit strength to say no to your bodily desires and urges. You reign over them. They don't reign over you.
Yeah.
And so fundamentally, learn how to say no to things. It doesn't have to be food, but something, right? And so for this person in particular, yeah, learn how to say no and trust that actually Jesus is inviting you to do a good thing. I would say on another level, you don't have to find yourself attracted to every single person in the opposite gender to be married to someone and to delight. You just have to be attracted to one person. So your hope is not, man, I hope I get attracted to every single person. That would actually be really exhausting. That'd be frustrating. Your hope is, would I be attracted to one? God, would you put the right person for me?
Yeah. That's good. That's good. We got time for maybe one or two more here before we head to small group. So one of these in particular, I would say this is probably like my favorite question because it hits on something that I actually love. So this question is, you talked about porn and the reasons why that's wrong. This is a previous message. Disrespect to the person you're watching, unreasonable expectations, etc. Can you talk about reading sex scenes in books, the difference between reading it and watching it? I know it's a little bit of a left turn, but it's one of these questions that got upvoted a lot, and I actually, as someone who really enjoys reading, and with the popularity of a lot of books right now. I mean, romance is huge right now. Romantasy, like romance and fantasy, like book series like A Court of Thorns and Roses, Fourth Wing. Like these are book series that have blown up culturally that also include like pretty graphic sex scenes in them. Is that different than like watching porn? Like how do we address that?
Yeah, I'm assuming Danny killed it and talked so much about why porn is bad, so I won't go into that too much. But what I will say is reading in the book or watching it on the screen is the same thing. Because what's happening is that you are still imagining what is happening in that scene and then fantasizing about it. And again, we just talked about lusting and moving towards that. And so what that is doing is producing urges in you and actually like creating images in your mind, whether of people that you know or things like that, that are actually doing the exact same thing. So whether you're watching it or not, there's no difference. And I feel like, I'm just gonna call out girls, I feel like that's one of the bigger spaces that girls actually find themselves in, is reading about porn and then pretending like it doesn't matter. I know Bridgerton and all that stuff that people are like watching, like that is actually so damaging to your soul and your mind, and doesn't allow you to actually engage with the opposite sex or other people without wanting to lust at them instead of actually like valuing them as people. And so I would just say, don't even do it.
Yeah, I think a fair question to ask is, am I loving my neighbor more because I've read this? Or am I like wanting something that actually isn't mine? That isn't helping you love your neighbor. It's not helping you like live in purity. It's actually damaging, and it's inviting you to create something in your mind that's not real. It's not for you.
Yep. That's good. Maybe we'll end on this one. This is a really good one. Because I brought up Song of Songs 8:4 in a message a couple weeks ago, right? Young women of Jerusalem, I charge you, do not stir up or awaken love until the appropriate time. The question asker is asking, how do you know when the time is right?
The time is right when you're ready to put a ring on it. Genuinely, I think it's like...
And you're married, yeah.
Yeah, when you're married. It's like when we're like moving towards marriage and like ready to make covenant vows in front of friends and family and God. And to say, all of my life is yours, all of your life is mine. That's the right time. That's the right moment. So like don't stir up things before God has ordained them to be good. Yeah. Trust that his timing is right. He's protecting you. He loves you.
Yeah. What about dating? Like when is the right time to date?
I think most freshmen in college, I do a lot of college ministry stuff. Most of the time, freshmen in college, I say, now's not a great time for you to date. You should just be a college student for a year and learn how to like figure out college. And then in sophomore year, I say, you know what? Yeah, it might be a decent time depending on context. Junior year, I'm like, let her rip. Like have some, like meet some people, like go on a bunch of days. This is great. And senior year, I'm like, yeah, go for it. Like you should try to date somebody. That's a very good idea. That's for college students. And so when I applied to high school, it would go, it probably isn't the best time most of the time. I don't have a hard and fast rule, but I would say, what are your parents saying? Do they have rules for you? Obey them. Don't do anything secret. Don't do anything shady. That's weird. If you have no desire to marry this person ever, then don't date them. And if you're like, man, this could work, I do have friends who are college or high school sweethearts. And so God blessed it. And it's like they lived like really faithful dating relationships. So it can work. But I think I know for a fact that was the vast minority of my friends who managed to date throughout all of college and make it work. So there's more risk.
Totally. One thing that I've regurgitated from another pastor was this sort of analogy of dating in high school is like going to the mall with no money in your pocket, right? Like one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to take something that does not belong to you, or you're going to leave sad because you had no money and you could not buy the thing you wanted, right? So he who has ears, let him hear. But I would say, generally speaking, high school dating seems unwise because, like Josh just said, like the chances of that relationship, like continuing as you both go to college and the growth that happens in college and like all of that, like it's not a non-existent chance, but it's not a great chance. And it seems like that you're setting yourself up for a lot of heartbreak and a lot of hardship in that dating relationship.
Yeah, to reiterate, Tracy and I, we both didn't date until after college, and it was awesome. God protected us so much. I don't know. If I was in your shoes and I started dating, I would have made so many terrible mistakes. I was an idiot. It would have been such a bad idea.
Yeah.
It was God's kindness to me that allowed me to be single for 24 years before I met the right woman. It was awesome.
Come on. I love it. Okay, so I lied. I'm going to, one more question, but someone just asked, can you bring Josh and Tracy back to preach again? And
Yeah.
I would love to.
We
We'll make it
love
happen.
being here.
I'm in.
I love it. Okay. You guys, let me close our time in prayer and send you off to small groups. Thanks for being here. So if you would, pray with me. Lord Jesus, I worship you, God, because you have designed us and you define what love looks like for us. God, even in the midst of the ways that we distort love, you are kind to us and you are good. Lord, and we want to honor you with our bodies. We want to honor you with our minds. We want to honor you with the dating relationships that we find ourselves in and the friendships that we find ourselves in. God, and we know that your love is deeper than any romantic relationship. And so whether we find ourselves single right now or single into the future, Jesus, you're better. Lord, and we do also believe that your word has answers for us, that as we read your word, we can glean wisdom and apply it to our lives, and thank you for showing us that tonight. Lord, I worship you for Josh and for Tracy, the wisdom that they have and that they have gained through their dating relationship, engagement, and marriage. Lord, would you continue to bless them and keep them, bless their ministry. Lord God, so grateful for these friends. Lord, I pray over next students who are struggling with purity, struggling with lust, struggling with homosexuality. Whatever it is, God, would you meet them in the midst? Would you give them courage and boldness to bring sin to light and to wrestle with community? God, and would you prove yourself to be bigger, stronger, greater than whatever it is that they are facing? We love you, Jesus. We pray all this in your name. Amen.
Hey guys, last night was super awesome. So if you were there for our Discuss Love Q&A with Josh and Tracy, hopefully this video is also helpful. Laura and I are going to try to answer some of the questions that didn't get asked last night in the Q&A because there's some really great questions up here, and maybe you asked a question a little bit late in the game and so it didn't have a chance to get as many upvotes. So we're going to try to get to some of those. And if this video, the main Q&A with Josh and Tracy, or this add-on to that blesses you, is helpful for you, maybe send this to a friend or someone from your small group who wasn't there last night, just so that everybody gets to hear what God's word has to say about some of these important things when it comes to relationships and sex and dating and all of those things. So let's dig into the Q&A a little bit and see some of these questions.
Pick a good one.
I'll start with this first one. It was the only question that somebody asked where they actually attached their name to it.
No way.
So, Nolan, good job being brave, asking a question. Nolan asked, why did Jesus choose to be single? It's a great question.
It is a good question.
I think back to my message from a couple weeks ago, Deeper Love, where I talked specifically about singleness. And Paul specifically says in 1 Corinthians 7 that he wishes everyone were single because of their ability to be completely devoted to the Lord. So I think when you think about Jesus, the one who was the most devoted to the Lord, it's not that marriage was a bad thing. Obviously, marriage is a picture of the gospel, but Jesus was on a mission. He came specifically to live the perfect life, die a sacrificial death, and rise again to conquer sin, death, Satan forever. And I think a dating relationship, a marriage relationship, would have divided him from that mission. Right? Again, marriage is a good thing, but Jesus had a very specific thing that he sought out to do, and so it wasn't part of God's plan for him to also be married. I also think like it probably closes the can of worms of like What if Jesus had kids and
Yeah.
stuff? There's some like, popular novels and stuff that have
Yeah.
been written that have sort of like explored some of that too. Like Jesus got married secretly to Mary Magdalene and whatever. And like all of that's just like not true. It's not in the Bible. There's no church history revolving around that. And I think for good reason. One, it didn't happen. And two, it would open up all these things that I think would be really difficult to deal with theologically.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Well said.
So I think Jesus did not get married for that reason. That's why he chose to be single. And I think that was probably God's best for him. Laura, this is a really good one. How can I just be friends with a guy without leading into a romantic relationship?
Yeah, kind of like what Josh said last night. Clarity is kindness, or kindness is clarity. Either one, they work both ways. I think being really upfront. I think one good way to be good friends with someone of the opposite sex is hang out in groups of people. Don't just spend a ton of one-on-one time together, because someone's always going to catch feelings, and it may not be reciprocated on the other side. And so I think it's really wise to hang out in groups of people, because I think we're totally supposed to have friends of the opposite sex, and they can teach you something, they can encourage you in different ways, but there is the risk of like someone catching feelings. And I think it's really good to be upfront and clear, and don't just tell a guy, hey pal, hey bro, because do you guys hate that?
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly. Don't just do that and
But-
be like, I made it clear.
Yeah. But use your words, be super clear.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, like, I don't see you as more than just a friend, but I really value your friendship. I would love to stay friends. I think like stuff like that
Yeah, it's helpful.
helps be really clear.
Mm-hmm.
How should I handle peer pressure when it comes to a relationship?
Peer pressure in the relationship from the other person. Is that what we're thinking?
I think, it could be, I think maybe two ways. I think one is like peer pressure when it comes to relationships. Maybe you've got friends who are dating, and so you feel like, well, should I also be dating? Or you've got friends who love to play little matchmaker, and they're like, oh, it'd be cute if you and so started dating, and then you start to feel all this pressure. Well, should I be dating them? Should I like them? When you don't, right? And that, I don't think that's kind on behalf of your friends.
No.
And you have zero obligation to date while you're in high school. There is nothing that is pushing you into that. You heard Josh and Tracy, you heard me say, like, I think high school relationships are actually unwise. And so zero peer pressure to get into that relationship. But what about if you are in the relationship and you're experiencing peer pressure, maybe to do something that you don't want to do? How do you handle that?
I think it's really wise to, again, like Josh and Tracy were saying last night, make sure that you guys are not hanging out one-on-one together. Never lay down together. Just eliminate the possibility for temptation is so key. And even confessing stuff before it happens, being like, ooh, I'm sorry, I might have gone a little too far in my thinking, and I kind of pressured you into maybe doing something we shouldn't have done. And having really clear boundaries is also good. I know so many people are like, well, what's the boundary line? How far is too far? Well, if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling guilty, probably not a good thing. And so being peer pressured by the person you're dating is never kind to you. Actually, that person, would you say, is being really selfish and probably just trying to get something from you in the moment. And so that would be a really good conversation to have with that person and get some clarity. And maybe if it continues, that person is not the right person to be with.
So going off of that, there's actually a question in here that's specifically about boundaries, and like this person is wanting to know, like, where is the line? Can you be really clear about what can we do and what can't we do in a dating relationship? Here's why I actually object to that question. I think if you're asking where is the line, your mindset is not right.
Yeah.
I think what you're essentially saying when you say where is the line is like, how much can I get away with without sinning? And I don't think that should ever be our mindset as Christians, right? I don't think I should be like, how much should I be able to get away with? But I should instead be asking, what is God's best when it comes to this relationship? And so, I don't know, picture it like this. You're playing capture the flag. And you know, because everybody's always done this in capture the flag, you like challenge someone right up at that center line. And you're like, oh, like, try to pull me across. Like, you're essentially doing that with sin, where you're saying, let me get right up to the line and let me like play tug of war a little bit and see if I can like have enough willpower and enough self-discipline to resist getting pulled over the line. However, if you run away from the line, you're never going to be in that situation, right? In fact, God's word says to flee sexual immorality. It doesn't say to fight sexual immorality. Flee, run away. And it's like the only sin that is talked about in those terms, right? We fight all other kinds of sin and temptation in our life, but when it comes to sexual sin, God says run away because he knows the pull and the power that has over us. So don't ask where is the line, ask how do I honor God and how do I like pursue God's best for me in this relationship.
Well said.
Let's see what's the next one. Ooh, this is a really good one. What should we be looking for in a future spouse? And when should we start getting excited and looking for that person?
I always tell or ask people, are you ready to be married in a year? And for high schoolers, most of you know the answer would be no, because you're in high school. And first of all, that'd be kind of wild being married in high school. But second is when let's say you go off and you do a gap year and you meet someone there and you're like, okay, this person actually really encourages me. This person pushes me closer to the Lord, encourages me in my walk with the Lord. They are someone that I want to spend time with. Like, I could see this person becoming my best friend. That is something that is really valuable because marriage is not something that's always super easy. It's not always fun. It's not always what you see on social media. There's a lot of mundane stuff that happens in marriage. Like, let's talk about schedules. Okay, what is your schedule going to look like for this week? That's not super fun all the time. So you want to make sure that you are with someone who can make the mundane fun and encourage you, and someone who you feel comfortable with seeing all the nitty gritty of your life, because that's going to be exposed in marriage. So I think that is something to be thinking about. In maybe you just see a guy and you're like, ooh, he's cute. And then girls, you play this game, you go 30 seconds, you look at a guy and you go, oh, okay, so he's going to ask me to be his girlfriend, and then we're going to date for 6 months, and then we're going to get married, and he's going to get me a puppy for an anniversary gift. You play that game. Don't lie to yourself. You know you do. But step back and just look at the person for who they are and pursue friendship with them, I think is the wisest thing that you can do. Don't over fantasize when you've never talked to the person.
That's super good. Someone else asked, what age or grade is considered okay to start dating?
I think it also depends on your parents.
I think it super depends on your parents.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I could tell you what the right age is for you.
No.
But if your parents have rules about you dating, obey them.
Yeah.
Josh and Tracy, I thought actually had really good answers. I mean, Josh was like,
in college,
he tells college freshmen, right? Because Josh is in college ministry. College freshmen probably shouldn't date, sophomores maybe. He said juniors let her rip, right? So maybe that same pattern would be true for you, that like by the time you're in college and later into your college years, you're ready to, you're looking towards graduation, you're thinking about life post-college, maybe then would be the right time to be like, like, who do I like really like as a friend? Who, are there, girls or guys that I've been hanging out with through my college years who I've developed a strong friendship with? Like, do they display the types of things that I would want in a future spouse? And then maybe start, pursuing them at that point, which is then a good segue into like, what are the types of things that we should look for as Christians in a future spouse? It's a really great question.
That is a really great question. This is the classic Christian answer, but truly it is the most important thing, that they are actively pursuing Jesus Christ, that they are living it out, that they are, I think it's really important to be active in your local church, having other believers surrounding you, encouraging you, caring for you when something really hard happens. I think it's also really cool to see people serving in the church. I mean, student ministries can't be done without our 54 small group leaders. We literally can't do ministry without people who are willing to step up and serve. And I think you learn a lot too about the person when you get to see them serve and pour into others. I think, again, you're looking for your best friend. You really are. You're looking for someone that you want to spend the rest of your life with. And that can feel like a lot of pressure. But it is something that's really true. Like Josh and Tracy said, who do you want to go spend time with at Target? Just walking the aisles, having a ball. Like, who do you want to go on a road trip with? Who do you want to travel the world with? Who are you not going to get sick of in 5 minutes? If you are currently dating someone and you find yourself getting super annoyed with that person and spending a night with them, probably not the right person you're supposed to be with. What would you say?
Yeah, I would just say, like, Bible says, like, we will know them by their fruit. And that's specifically talking about we'll know someone is a follower of Jesus by the fruit that they're displaying in their life. But I think that also goes for someone that you might consider dating and or marrying, is like, what type of fruit is being produced in their life, right? So you talked about actively pursuing and following Jesus. Like, that is essentially what fruit is. Like, are you seeing, like, not only the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control in their life, but do you see them serving somewhere in church, plugged into community with other believers who can hold them accountable and who know what's going on in their life? Do you see the way that they treat other people? Like, maybe a good benchmark would be like, go out to eat with them. How do they treat the server at the restaurant?
That's a good one.
Right? Interact with them when they're around their parents. How does he treat his mom? Like, those are types of things that will show you the fruit that's in their life. And I think fruit looks different depending on your season.
I would agree.
And so seeing somebody in a lot of different seasons, you will see a lot of different fruit. And those are good ways to help determine, like, is this somebody that I should be considering marriage with? And then again, like, that's probably down the road for you, because I don't think as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, those are the types of conversations that you're probably having right now or should be having right now. I don't think it would be wise. So, I think that's probably a quick way that I would answer that. This is a good one. What are the signs of an unhealthy relationship or unhealthy attachment? So maybe one of our students who's already dating, how do they know if their relationship is healthy or not?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to be thinking about. Can I say one thing before I kind of answer the question? Guys or girls, if any of you are in a relationship where you're actually scared to be alone with that person, you need to get out. You really do. We care about you. If you need to come talk to Danny, if you need to come talk to me, we want to make sure that you are okay. So hear that first. And then some red flags, I think, would be if there's a lot of anger in the relationship and it's coming out towards you. If your friends don't like the person and your friends, let's say you've been besties with this person since first grade and they have seen you through a lot of life and they're like, hey, I see how he treats you in public and then he talks about you behind your back, or I see her gossiping and spreading rumors about you at school, or your parents tell you, hey, we really love you, we care about you, but this person is not good for you, and these are the 4 reasons why. Listen to those things. They're not doing it to spite you. They're not doing it to be mean or controlling. They actually love you and care about you, and they want to see you in a really healthy, good relationship. Yeah. What else would you add?
Well, let's do this, because somebody asked about red flags, and specifically about red flags in a guy that they should watch out for. So let me share maybe some red flags in guys that you should look out for in dating relationship, and then you share some red flags for girls. So here's what I would say. Red flags for dudes. You mentioned anger, Laura. That's a huge one. Anger has definitely been one of my struggles. I shared that with you guys. I went through regen last year to work on anger. And so if anger is coming out towards you, generally anger is an indicator that there's something else going on below the surface that needs to be addressed and healed. And so outbursts of anger would be one red flag. Watching porn is another major red flag. Somebody asked, like, hey, is watching porn considered cheating in a relationship? Basically,
wouldn't that be fornication?
Yeah. And so, like, I think if the guy you're dating is like watching porn regularly and like constantly slipping up and like going back to that, Proverbs says, like a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool returns to his folly, right? So it's like if he's constantly going back to this gross thing, that's an indicator that he should not be in a relationship and that you should break up with him, because maybe you breaking up with him is the thing that will like wake him up to the fact that his life needs rearranging and that he needs to get healthy. So I would say pornography is a huge red flag. And then the way he treats other people, I've already kind of mentioned that, but like, how does he treat a server at a restaurant? How does he treat his mom? Like, those are things that I would look for as red flags. And don't be with a guy who is unkind. Like, kindness is so godly, and he should be kind to you, but also kind to the people around you. And if he's only kind to you and isn't kind to other people in his life, that should tell you something too. What about red flags in girls?
I think a couple of red flags in girls would be girls who run their mouth. I don't love when girls run their mouth. I don't know if it would be anger as much as like controlling their tongue. Like if you can't stop the words coming out and they just kind of continue to flow in a really negative fashion, I don't think that's a good thing, because they probably love the gossip and that leads to a lot of drama. So girls who are super drama focused, I think, is a huge red flag. And a lot of that stems from what they're watching. So are they watching Love is Blind? Are they watching The Bachelor? Are they watching things that focus on the drama of the relationship versus like an actual fruitful relationship? Because I don't think any of us want to enter into a relationship and have to deal with drama upon drama upon drama. Would you?
I would not.
Yeah, no. It may look exciting on a TV show. Why do you think they focus on those couples? Because it's kind of fun to watch.
Yeah. It makes for good TV, but it doesn't make for a good relationship.
No, definitely not. So that would be the first kind of second point. Another point would be a girl who is very self-focused. That is not, there's probably some maturing that needs to happen. There's probably a lot of like, truthfully, it's probably a lot of insecurities. And so they're very focused on themselves and not so much focused on others, because in a relationship, you already find out how selfish you are. And when you're in a marriage, having two selfish people only focusing on themselves, I don't think is a very fruitful marriage, because then there's a lot of compromise in marriage. And so if that person is having a hard time compromising, even in a dating relationship, it would be so much more challenging in a marriage. Yeah, I think I'll just stick with those three.
That's good. Let's go to a couple that came in during the Q&A from last night.
Love it.
So some questions that didn't even get to make it to the main page for you to upvote on, but really good questions.
Amount that came in.
Yeah, honestly, it was like 9 or 10 that came in. So this one is it bad for the girl to make the first move and ask out the guy? If a girl likes a guy and doesn't know if he likes her, what should she do?
Okay, what's your thought?
Here's my thought. In a relationship, you are choosing your problems.
Facts.
Right? Like, you see what this person is like, and by choosing them, you're also choosing their problems. If a guy is unwilling or unable to ask you out, I think you're choosing a potential problem of passivity. That this guy is going to be passive. He's not going to take charge. He's not going to lead well in that relationship. And I think you should hesitate on choosing the problem of passivity. And so if you feel like this guy's just been dragging his feet, leading you on, never really making the move to ask you out and be bold and courageous in that way, one of two things is either true. One, he either does not like you, or two,
Yes.
he's being passive.
Yeah.
I guess technically it could also be true that he's totally oblivious to the fact that you like him. And if that's the case, like, guys are notoriously bad at picking up on hints. So like,
Kindness is clarity.
Yeah.
Clarity is kindness.
exactly, right? So I think without asking him out, you can also express interest, knowing that it might not be reciprocated. But I do think that the way that we were created by God is for the guy to pursue the girl.
Yeah.
And so I think, girls, you want a guy who's going to be
100%.
bold, ask you on the date,
Mhm.
and really lead in that fashion.
I think another thing too with that, if a girl is asking a guy out, you're being super impatient and you're just going after what you want.
Mm.
And I don't think that is going to lead to a super awesome, great relationship. Now, maybe it could, but I think that is the minority.
This one's also really good. What can you do if you can't get a person out of your head, and no matter how hard you try, you just can't stop liking them, even if they don't like you back?
Do you have a Taylor Swift quote for this?
I don't. I should. I bet if I thought hard enough, I could think of a Taylor Swift lyric that would fit. This is a tough situation. It's a real situation.
It
It's
is.
something that I've definitely dealt with before
I
too.
do.
And I think it's true that time heals all wounds. And so if you give it enough time, eventually the strong feelings you feel towards this person will fade. I also think there are wise steps you can take to aid yourself.
Yeah.
And you know what? You probably shouldn't text them all the time. You probably shouldn't snap them all the time. It might
Don't
be
stalk their social media.
Yes, like
It doesn't help
unfollow
you.
them. Not and like unfollowing isn't an unkind thing. It just might be the thing that you need to do
Yeah.
in order to not see them all of the time.
Yeah.
And I get, like, they might be at school, they might be in your
Yeah.
classes. You're going to see them in those situations. However, I think you can be wise in the ways you interact outside of that, so that they're not just like currently,
I think something else along those lines is, let's say you're a girl and you keep talking about this guy that you like to your friends, and maybe he's told you he doesn't like you, whatever it is. The more you keep talking about it, the more you're going to be thinking about it. And that goes for guys too. So if you keep bringing up this girl that you're obsessed with to your buddies, and you're just going to keep thinking about it, you're going to keep going back to this pattern in your head. What you need to actually do, and this is like proven by science, is when that thought process is going through your brain, if you say out loud, stop, it actually helps retrain your brain, because you're actually stopping the thought process, because it's different when you actually have words coming out of your mouth to stop the thinking. And then it's like, okay, am I in my room alone right now? Am I thinking about this person before I go to bed? Am I working out and I'm listening to their favorite song? Like, what are you doing that allows you to keep thinking about that person? Because maybe you're like, oh, well, if I keep thinking about them, there's like a hint of hope that it could change. Unwise.
Yep.
It really is. So learn to stop that thought process and literally say out loud, stop. I could go on, but I won't.
Next question. Can you still be friends after you break up?
You
Laura-
guys, there's this YouTube video that goes around, and it is guys interviewing girls, asking. So they interviewed 100 girls and 100 guys on a college campus. Can guys and girls be friends after breaking up? Almost every single girl said yes, and not a single guy said yes. Every single guy said no. Out of 100, or it was actually 200 students, 100 girls and 100 guys. I think only 2 or 3 girls said no. Every single guy said no. Because I think it's hard. I do. Because someone's going to catch feelings or continue to catch feelings in the relationship.
Yeah. And it's similar to what Josh and Tracy talked about last night with, if you're a girl, can you have a guy best friend? Probably not, because one heart is always drifting towards the other. I think that's pretty much universally true.
Yeah,
And then when one of you gets married, that relationship has to fundamentally change.
it does.
So like Laura, I'm gonna assume that you don't have like as close of guy friends now that you're married to Wesley
Mm-mm.
as you did previously, and probably some of those guy relationships like had to change because you married Wesley.
Yeah.
Different when you're still single, maybe, but I mean, truthfully, I'm on good terms with girls that I've dated in the past, but I'm not friends really with girls that
And
I've
you're not
dated
like going
in the
to
past.
continually hang out with them.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And like at the stage that I'm in life, a lot of the girls that I seriously dated for an extended period of time, they're all married now. And so like I don't hang out with them. They're not my best friend anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think, can you be friends after a breakup? Yes. Depends on how you dated. I think determines what the relationship looks like after the breakup. But I do think that when you do have strong feelings for someone,
It's hard.
the hard break might be actually what's best.
Yeah.
Here's a good question. If I look at a girl to determine if I want to get to know them based on their looks, is that a bad thing? So, like, essentially using looks and appearance as the do I want to date this person or do I not want to date this person? How do we think about that?
Well, the first thing that popped into my mind when you read that question was Proverbs 31. And it says, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting. Beauty is fleeting. And a woman who serves the Lord is to be praised.
Mm-hmm.
Because my grandpa actually told me this. It's not weird, but it's interesting when you hear it from your grandpa. But he said, when I was 19, I never thought I'd be attracted to an 80-year-old woman. But he's like, now I'm 80 and I'm still attracted to your grandma who is 80. So it's like, you have to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
That person is not going to look, let's say, 16 for the rest of their lives. And the other thing, this might be a little morbid, but let's say you get married and that person gets in a horrible car wreck or a motorcycle accident and something happens to their looks. Are you going to end the relationship with that person because their looks have been changed by something that they couldn't control? So just something to think about.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's especially hard in our kind of dating app world that we live in. You're swiping left, you're swiping right.
Yep.
And a lot of times it's like purely based on, do I find this person attractive or not? And that's not to say that attraction plays no part in the relationship, right? Like attraction actually is an important part in, do I want to date this person, marry this person? If you're like not attracted to them at all, then like, yeah, don't date them, don't marry them. But also attraction is based on way more than just physical appearance.
It is.
So the physical appearance does matter, but it's not the ultimate thing. And it shouldn't be your primary decision maker when it comes to, is this person a person I should date or eventually marry?
Yeah.
We've got time for just a couple more of these, so we'll try to answer these as quickly as possible. But how do you know when you actually like, it's in quotes, or love someone and don't think they're just cute? It's like, when does that switch from, like they're kind of cute to, oh, I like this person?
I'm trying to remember how it happened for me and Wesley.
Yeah, actually, I'd be super curious to know. Like,
Wesley knew within like the first 3 weeks of dating that he was going to marry me.
wow.
I did not. It wasn't until like 4 months later. And we really said we weren't going to use the words I love you until we got engaged. Because I think that just opens the door for a lot more heartache if things don't work out. And I know so many people are so quick to drop the L-bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And I would caution that. I just would. Yeah, I was driving to my chiropractor and I was on the exit ramp from 212 to 494. And I was just thinking about Wesley and I kind of was like praying for him because I knew he was having a hard work day. And as I was praying for him, I got this like, I don't think I just like him. I think I actually love him. what? And I remember crying in the car while I'm driving, and I got to my chiropractor's office, and I like told my chiropractor, and she was like, "Honey, that's amazing." And I was like, "I don't know what to do right now. I think I love him. I do love him." So it just kind of hits, and I know that's not a very tangible answer, but it just kind of smacks you in the face all of a sudden, and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah, I think there is a degree of truth to the phrase, like, you know when you know.
yeah." I was gonna say that, but I know people hate that.
I know, because it is cliche.
It is, but it's true.
But it's cliche because it is true,
Yeah.
I think, at least a percentage of the time.
Mhm.
You know, I think, do I like this person versus do I love this person can be tricky.
Yeah.
You know, I think for me, when I've like gone from like, I noticed this person, I thought they were cute, they said something that was like funny, like we have similar interests, whatever, to like, oh wow, I like this person, like I would be interested in pursuing them, going on dates, like
And then
that type
that's
of
when you
thing.
ask her out.
Right, exactly. But for me, I think a lot of the, you know, diving off of that cliff into, yes, I like this person, is do I see some sort of alignment in mission?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
maybe this might not be true for you right now because you're in high school and you don't really know what the Lord is calling you to and how he wants to use
Yeah.
your life. However, for me, like I'm 29, I know without a doubt that the Lord has called me to this, that like discipling students and pastoring you guys is what the Lord made me to do. And so if I find a girl who has a similar mission, feels called in similar ways, is excited about the same things, that to me like pushes me over the edge of like, oh man, I actually like this girl, as opposed to like, oh, she's just cute, we have some stuff in common. So that's like a big thing for me, I think, is that mission alignment. But take that from somebody who's still single. Last question. It's a good question. We'll end on this one. If you're not dating, and I'm assuming like this means like you're in the talking stage, how do you know when to make it official? Slap that boyfriend, girlfriend label on it. At what point is that we are now not just talking, we are dating, we are in a relationship?
I think every relationship is going to look different. I think it's really wise to be that friend for a little bit and just get to know them. And then when you start hanging out more and more, and it's like you're seeing that person, I don't know, 3-4 times a week, and it's really hard to say goodbye because you just want to keep hanging out, I would say then, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the dude needs to be the one to ask the girl to be the girlfriend. Because he's the one who asked you out, hopefully. He's the one who's then going to move into, he's going to lead in that relationship to say, hey, you know what? Yes, we've become super good friends, but I would like to take this relationship to, would you be my girlfriend? And it doesn't have to be super crazy elaborate, but okay, we're kind of moving in the right direction. I would like to make this official.
Yeah. And so I would say, like, for you as a high school student, feel zero pressure to take that step.
Yeah.
Again, like, I don't think high school relationships are particularly wise. I used that shopping illustration last night of like, it's like going to the mall with no money. One of two things is going to happen. You're either going to take something that doesn't belong to you or you're going to leave sad. And so for what that's worth, consider, is an exclusive dating relationship what's wise and best for me in this season? And the answer might be no, it's actually not.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not going to progress this further.
Yep.
Like, yes, I like hanging out with you, but like dating doesn't work right now. Like, that's okay.
It's totally okay.
And I think good. So be cautious with that. But I think if you are in a position, you know, maybe think college, where marriage becomes a real possibility now, I actually tend towards like maybe putting a label on it sooner rather than later. I think like a elongated and protracted time of like a lack of clarity. Well, what are
Yeah.
we? Like, we're hanging out, but like we're not dating. He's not my boyfriend. Like,
It's just not kind.
I mean, situationships right now, I think, are the stupidest thing of all time.
They're so dumb.
Because people are just like, I'm in proximity with this person. We like hang out one-on-one. And like, what are we? I think the kindest thing you could do is be like, hey, I really like hanging out with you. We've been going on essentially dates. Like, would you be willing to like go on an official date with me? Because I think I'd like you to be my girlfriend. Like, have that type of like define the relationship conversation actually sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
And then together, when you've both sort of made this decision, we're going to be exclusive with one another, you can start to figure out, is this the person I want to marry? And again, that doesn't need to be you right now as a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior in high school. That can be a college you type of thing that happens, right? So feel zero pressure to have those types of conversations right now in high school. Okay, we're out of time. We've answered a ton of these questions. You guys, I just want to say I'm so impressed with you and really grateful for your courage to ask these questions. I think it just speaks to the maturity level in our student ministry that you guys want to know what God's word has to say, how to do this biblically. So kudos to you. Thought last night was amazing. I'm so pumped that you were there. And again, if this has been helpful for you, what Josh and Tracy said last night, what Laura and I said today, send this to a friend. Send it to someone who wasn't in small group with you last night. And let's do this better. Let's do love by design. And I think as a ministry, that'll be what's best for us. So keep following Jesus. We will see you next Wednesday for the best night of the week. We love you. Next.
Adios.